he's going to be dead chuffed with that.
Your own little tool.
Fuck. And it's all lovely and exciting. Hey guys, and welcome back to episode 3 of our Ferrari 308 restoration. We left you hanging on in episode 2 where we got to a point where we had to hold fire on the doors, and now we're going to start the metalwork on the back end. So it's perfecting the gaps on the engine lid and the boot lid before we start assessing how we're going to tackle what we found on the back end. So it's not proved out as straightforward as we thought. So basically, when this was in paint, the engine lid itself was hitting on the corners and by the windscreen aperture as well. So what we've done first is gapped everything up, but now the boot lid is fouling the engine lid, front of the engine lid. So we've had to move the boot lid accordingly. So we've had to take the hinges off, slot the hinges, so we've got more adjustment. And now that's obviously thrown a curveball where all our gaps are all over the place, but our engine lid and our boot lid are now square with the rear bulkhead panel. So it's where we want to be, but now it's just shown how much more work we've got to do.
So as you can see on the boot, if you look from this side over to the other side here, you can see that basically these have been welded in completely different side to side, but they're actually also wrong from how they're supposed to be in, because this is supposed to blend in with this, and it's supposed to be one smooth piece along with this flat in here. This is sort of carried on with both of these return edges, and the size of these are completely different both sides. So you can see this side is more correct. It's still not correct, but it's more correct than the other side. Which is going to need a lot of work changing that. So the return edges are supposed to sort of line up at the bottom. They don't. We get basically this whole side of the car at the back is basically poking too far, or that side's in too far. So we might have to look at a bit of cutting and moving of this back panel to finalize and line all of that up. Along with that, underneath on like the sort of rear valance, both sides have got quite a lot of rust damage, and they're quite out of shape. So both of those are going to need a lot of work as well. So say once we've got this back end sort of straightened up, then that gives us a lot more reference points moving forward, and we can keep both sides as equal as possible. Where this rear panel here had been changed and altered, all of these top edges were about 5mm higher. As you can see, they're now sitting at the same height as the rest of the flanges, and that was actually hitting up on the engine lid and just holding it way above the matching edges all along here. We then found that when you lift up the boot lid, you can see in the center is a lot closer than the rest. There is a bit of a taper on the edges, but we basically put a flat edge across this, and the center here is actually sitting a lot higher than both of the corners. This is probably where there's a center like latching piece in the middle. It's clearly in the past just been slammed down onto that, and it's basically pushed this center up, so we're gonna have to flatten that out. The edge of the boot lid as well was just super wobbly and just had a lot of abuse, so we straightened that out so that, you know, our eyes weren't getting so messed up trying to get all the gaps and stuff level. When you've got wobbly edges, it's even harder. It was good work.
Yeah, it was, yeah. So now we've got the engine lid and the boot lid exactly where we want them. Unfortunately, the rest of the metalwork is not where we want it to be. Right, let's show you first here. So these gaps are way off, but also look at the indifference between the rear panel and the edge of the boot, and that kind of theme carries on to the other side as well. not as bad, but you can see this gap here. Extremely rubbish and inconsistent. And also as well, if you lift this up, Johnny, I don't think you'll be able to catch this on camera, but yeah, this whole rear slam panel is...
This side is basically tilted in a lot more than the other side. Like you say, it's hard to see unless you're really like knelt down next to the car, sort of looking straight down the back.
I think looking down, you can just catch that side looks fairly straight. This side, you can't really catch it that well. No. But believe me, it's a lot worse in person, but also making our lives difficult. So we believe the best route to go would be to maybe detach the whole rear panel, so we can then rectify the rears of the wings to match all the boot lid and the engine lid, and then we can reattach this in the correct place. So it's quite a daunting amount of work considering this has all been done before, but obviously probably when this was restored a long time ago, then you know there wasn't the kind of the value in the vehicle that there would be today. So obviously, as you can see, a lot less care was taken in the process. So now we've gone back to bare metal. It will be absolutely savage to just ignore problems like this and just carry on. So this all needs to be rectified properly. And then probably rather than starting with cutting the whole back end off, we'll probably get all the repairs done on the lower quarters and the rear valance first, because all that's staying put. So we'll probably tackle that. And then once we've got ahead into the swing of things and we've picked up the minerals, then we'll attack the back panel. There is one silver lining to this whole project. We found 50p. So that's 50p towards the bill for our customer. So he's going to be dead chuffed with that.
Right, we're moving on to doing some of the boot panel repairs now. I've already done a little bit of work to it, mostly just getting some of the old stuff out. See here we've got the old boot what's-it, as we're calling it, mounting point. You can see that it's over the time they've mounted it in multiple different positions. So if you can see here, they had drilled a hole through the collar of the threaded insert into the alley, and it was literally just one little rivet holding each of those in place. Yeah, you can see it a bit better on this one. Yeah, so really bizarre. So obviously we've had to remove both of those, so we have to do a little bit of welding and panel beating to clean these up. We've actually managed to pull out a lot of the dents and sinking we had where these boot latch inserts were sat. So that was actually done. Sometimes you have to make your own little tools. So I made this little levered piece, and then put a couple of different kinks into it, and then flattened off an end up the other side. So we're going to try and sort out, I'm not sure how well you can see it on camera, but there's a dent in the middle of this frame. So we put a piece of allium underneath, That's just so that we're not going to put much force on it, but so that when this is in here, and you've got to apply a little bit of force just to, you know, so that when you start hammering on here, it actually, you know, pulls up. So that's basically just a bit of protection, because the layer you can see in there is actually the outer skin. So obviously we don't want to cause any damage to the outer skin. As you can see, we've gone around the rear right quarter and the rear valance here, and replaced sections of those, and they're welded in now. And moving on to the other side, I've started doing the same thing here. Luckily, much smaller area that needed to be repaired. So as you can see here, just got a small section that was cut out, a new piece made. But in doing so, I'll spin around, you can see that behind that there is some rust that needs dealing with, which is part of the inner wheel arch. And then in looking at the inner wheel arch, you can see that there is all kinds of horrors going on here, along with the bottom here. You can see there's plenty of rust damage. We obviously need to cut the outer line here so that we can actually gain access to behind there to check how much of the inner is rusted away and damaged and how much we need to repair, which has started me on making a new piece for the arch line. And I'll run you through a bit of the process through this, which is quite simple really. Right, we're now at a point here where this arch line piece is fitting up reasonably well to the arch here. So what I'm going to do is cut just along the bottom edge of this and just cut out the bottom of that lip, which will allow us to clamp our new piece all the way up to the top. Now that we've got this arch section out, and you can have a look inside here, and see all this edge is rusty. A lot of it from here upwards is savable, but this down here is in pretty rough shape, along with the fact that all of this inside, as you can see, just had big globby welds run and then sealed over the top of. So we're going to have to cut that back somewhere up here where we find the good stuff carries on, and then replace that all the way down here, because you can also possibly see in there how it's actually mounted wrong, where it's supposed to be, you know, flush with the panel, and then you can see at the bottom where they've obviously cut and welded this before, it's pulled it out So that's another thing to rectify. Fuck. So as you can see here, the inside has now been repaired on this side. That's also covered in the Nova Bodywork primer. So this is the piece that was cut out. It's absolutely horrible piece that's like overlap joint welded and just generally grotty. I don't think this was ever properly prepped before when it was put in, so unfortunately that's just, you know, started to rot away. Fortunately, didn't really get to the skin too bad, so that should actually clean up quite nicely, and then we can put the Noval on it like we've done this side. You can see how much that just doesn't conform to the shape of the wing at all. Is then making this new piece to go in that matches the shape and even the crease in the panel. So now that I've got both of the inner arch pieces pretty close and fitting well, the next step to do is get the outer arch piece that I've made. I've got that clamped in place here with a few clecos as well, because the next step is to trim and cut away the old outer arch and basically get all of the inside that we can get to cleaned up, prepped, and then coated in the Noval Bodywork primer so that metal underneath is also protected. From this point on, I now, every time I take this off and put it back on, it's in exactly the same spot. So get a quick shot here just so you can see the marked line we've done for the arch. Now got the outer arch cut out, just gone in quickly, ground back to the liner marked. They've also gone over this inside, given it a quick clean up. Actually turns out most of the metal's pretty good. As you can see, most of it's come up nice and shiny, but just as an extra safety, we'll put some Furtan on there, clean that back, and then we can get the bodywork primer on there. So now that we've got the inside arches are tacked in, and just basically now have the outside cut, and we have the new outer clecoed in place. I've trimmed all the edges to get this to fit up nice, and you can see all the cleco tabs being used.
So I think we're going to wrap up episode 3 now. There's quite a bit of content in there and quite a lot of jabbering as well. So that'll be enough to whet your palates for the moment. So going on to the next episode, we're going to cover, I think, doing the door skins, rectifying the sill, and finish off the arches, which Johnny has made a good start on as well. So I also want to say a big thank you to everyone who's followed us and supported us, shared us, liked it, and whatever, because we've now breached over 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. So yeah, please keep watching and supporting, and that's going to continue to grow, so we'll be able to give you more content, better content, yeah, and it's all lovely and exciting. So thank you again. And also, because of social media, the powers, someone actually contacted the client for who owns the vehicle and managed to source a brand new old stock scuttle panel from the top there, which is absolutely amazing. We got it for a good price, very honest price, and we can't thank you guys enough for jumping in and helping us with this restoration, because that is one panel that I was honestly quite terrified about making, because the screen aperture has got to be absolutely perfect, or else your glass is not going to seal properly. So don't get me wrong, it's going to be an interesting and tough one to replace anyways, because this has already been mutilated, so we've not actually got original reference to how it should go. So thank you for that, thank you for helping out, and yeah, by all means, keep the help coming. I'm pretty sure the customer is going to want a GoFundMe account to fund the ever-growing restoration of this as well. So by all means, crack on. Cheers guys, and well, stay tuned, ready for the next video.